Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruber. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome back to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Kathy Gruber.
And I'm Jason Mefford. And today, no, it's after Christmas, but it sounded a little bit like Santa Claus to me. Ho, 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 ho. Anyway, we're going to talk about traditions and some of the expectations kind of around traditions and how those might actually kind of change in your life. So let's take it away, because I know, I think a lot of times people, with things like traditions, feel like they have to do the same thing or their whole life, right? And so where do we want to go with this, Kathy? Because I know you've kind of got an example of this. I kind of do from this year too. I mean, as we're getting older, things kind of change, and so let's talk about it, because we don't want people to feel like they're locked in. They have to do certain things for the rest of their life just because somebody told you that you have to do that.
Right. Or that's the way we've always done it, sort of thing, right? So I'm in the midst of wedding planning. We're getting married April 14th. Woohoo. And I cannot tell you how many people have said, "Oh, what are your colors?" It's like, for the last time, we don't have colors, right? We don't have bridesmaids or groomsmen. We're not doing flowers. That's kind of where the color comes in, right? They all wear the same dress, or all the flowers are the same. And a friend of ours is going to be doing some aerial where she's up in this big lollipop, which looks like a hoop in the sky with a stick. And she's up in there and she'll be pouring champagne for people. And she normally decorates it in flowers. And I was telling her, I said, his mom keeps asking what colors there are. I'm just telling you there's no colors. And she said, well, what color do you want me to make the flowers? You have to tell me what color to put the flowers on the thing. And I said, okay, well, his tux is blue and black, and my reception dress is blue and black. And I guess the tablecloths that don't have the multicolored tablecloths, they're going to have blue. And she goes, I'm not going to tell his mom, but I think your colors are blue. Like, fine, the fucking colors are blue. And I'm going to have a blue thing in my hair, so it's like, it's become blue. We didn't set out to go, our colors are blue. And, but over time of just having to organize so much stuff for a wedding, the freaking colors came out blue. So it's like, but there's
yeah, because one of the traditions too, right? Something borrowed, something new, something blue, right? That the bride is supposed to wear. What is it?
Old new, borrowed blue, and a sixpence in my shoe.
Oh, I'd never heard it that way before.
Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, and a sixpence in my shoe.
Oh, you gonna get a sixpence for your shoe?
Sure.
I'm just kidding,
and but that kind of that tradition is sort of fun for me, because that's just like, no one needs to know that's happening. Like, you don't stand
it's
up.
It's all for you, right?
It's all for you, right? And whereas all these other traditions, I guess for you, but also for everybody else. So it's like, I grew up Catholic and I went to so many damn Catholic weddings, which are eternal, but they did the unity candle. And that was sort of this old-fashioned tradition of, the two flames becoming one. And some people would have their parents light the initial one, the two families coming together. And, if you dig deep into these traditions, they go so far back. And, I had talked about, let's jump the broom at the end of the ceremony, which is actually an old slave tradition of jumping the broom. It's a pagan thing. Or actually tying your hands together with the hand fasting, which is where tying the knot came from. So there's all these traditions that most people don't understand where they came from, but they just do them because, well, that's just what we've always done.
Well, because I think that's one of the big things with traditions, right? That again, it's like, well, just because that's what we've always done, or that's what people say you're supposed to do you want to do them or not? Right? Because things like the hand fasting, it's really cool. The unity flame is really cool, right? Yeah. And so if something like that resonates with you, and I think, part of maybe some of the traditions is understanding where some of these traditions come from. Because I've even started to learn that some of the sayings we say regularly and that are built into our culture, it's like, holy fuck, I don't want to be saying that anymore, because
Yeah.
what that really means or what that really came from,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anything to do with.
Yep.
Right. And so part of, maybe some of the traditions is kind of understanding, well, where did they come from, or why? I think wasn't it Zig Ziglar that did the one about the meatloaf?
Yes, I was gonna
Right.
just say
You were going to
that.
talk about that too, right? So he used to tell that story about his mom cutting off the ends of the ham each Christmas, or it must have been Christmas probably if it was a
Yeah,
ham, right? Because there's a tradition, right? Ham for
right. And
Christmas,
she went
turkey
to her
for
mom and yeah,
Thanksgiving.
she's like, Mom, why do you cut off the ends of the ham before you put them in the oven? And she goes, Well, I don't know. Your grandmother always did it. Go ask her. So the daughter goes in and asks the grandmother, Hey, grandma, do you I don't like, why would you cut the ends of the ham off? What does that signify? And she goes, Oh, well, when I moved into my first apartment, the oven was too small. I couldn't fit the ham in. I had to cut the ends off.
Yeah.
And it was a necessity thing and not a tradition, and it's like you do have to question those things. Like, what does now people do the sand ceremony where they each take, sand and they pour the sand together, and it's beautiful. It takes forever. Yeah, people stand there like, it's like, can you guys just get along with the wedding? But yeah, it's like, question, what do you want? And people, God, well, there was another one that people were asking me about the wedding that is just this tradition that I'm like, we're not doing that. Like, that's not important to us, and it's become, the culture now and society now, you're so more able to kind of make it your own, right? There's not this expectation of every wedding has to look exactly the same. Whereas I went to so many when I was in my 20s and 30s where you could have just replace the face and it was the exact same ceremony, the same prayer, the same poem, the same tradition, the same unity candle, the same, um, and why do we want to keep those?
Mm-hmm.
And do you, is it to honor the ancestors? Is it because it is something that you appreciate, or is there something new that you want to create? Is there a new tradition that you want to start in your family?
Yeah, because I think that's the important thing too, right? Is you can start new traditions, and I think it goes back to the things that we've talked about before of does this serve me anymore, right? So again, I mean, my kids are all grown, gone,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's this year for Christmas time. Right. I mean, I spent I don't know how many years, decorating the house with the lights and the tree and the everything
Mm-hmm.
else and the Santa and the stockings and the gifts and the all that stuff, right? Because that's just tradition. You just do that for Christmas, right? And obviously when the kids are younger, that a lot of times is more important of a tradition because you're trying to set that with your kids. But then
Sure.
as you get older, as your kids leave, then it's like, well, okay, do we still get a Christmas tree? Right. And up until this year, I still did because my partners at the time wanted a Christmas tree and family
Mm-hmm.
was coming over and all
Right.
this kind of stuff. Right. So I was still putting up lights and Christmas trees and gifts and all that stuff too. And this year, nada, zip.
Mm.
Right. So not a Christmas tree light, not a Christmas tree, not a house lights, not a decoration, not a stocking, not a present either.
Bah humbug.
Bah humbug. Now, it wasn't because I was bah humbug, right? But the partner that I'm with now, we learning things about each
Mm-hmm.
other, right? As you go through and we're building a new relationship. And she looked at me and she's like, what do you think about presents? And I'm like, well, she's like, I don't think we need to get each other presents for Christmas, do we? And I'm like, no, we don't. Thank you very much.
Woohoo! Score.
We just buy the stuff during the year. We give each other gifts during the year, when we need them, when we want them.
Yep.
We just decided, for us, that's not a gift exchange is not an important thing,
Yeah.
right? But so we didn't do that. But I like to watch some Christmas movies around Christmas
Mm.
time, right? And so again, I introduced her to a couple of movies. She introduced me to some movies that she was used to watching around the Christmas and New Year's times. And so it was, we still kind of carried forward that part of the tradition, but we did it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And she was born and grew up in another part of the world than I did, right? And so even there, Christmas wasn't as big a deal as New
Mm.
Year's.
Oh, hmm.
Okay. And so actually New Year's Eve, New Year's Day was different for me because we kind of incorporated more of her traditions into what we're doing. And so we're kind of making it what works for us instead of, relying on somebody else saying, on New Year's Eve, you must watch. It used to be Dick Clark, I think. Is it
Oh
still Ryan
God.
Is it still Ryan
Yeah,
Seacrest doing
Brian,
it?
yeah, he's going to be eternal now too. He's going to
He'll
live
be eternal.
forever.
He's going to live forever like Dick Clark, right? So, you have to watch that. And then the minute that the ball comes down, you have to toast champagne and you have to, it's like, you don't have to do any of those things unless you want to.
Right. So to that point, so I have my own tradition on New Year's Eve, which is I hand out money at midnight because my dad believed that if you handed out money, it would come back to you a hundredfold. So
Uh-huh.
that if you were generous, then it would come back to you. So no matter where I am, I've missed a couple years, but for the most part, I go around and I hand out like dollar bills. One year I did fives. One year, I was still with my ex. He was sick. He had gone to bed at like 9 o'clock. And I'm like, I'm not going to bed. I'm staying up till midnight. So at midnight, I was by myself. I flicked the porch light on and off. I was like, woo. And I'm standing there holding all these dollars, right? And I'm like, well, I have to give these to somebody. So I wedged them under the cats that were
Under
sitting
the
on the
cats.
couch. And I woke up in the morning and all the money was gone. And I'm like, hey. So, but no, we were at the Magic Castle this year and I handed out money to the people in our party. I've handed it to strangers and they're like, why are you giving me this? I also, and this is sort of, I don't know where I heard this, but what you're doing on New Year's Eve, like what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, is going to carry through the rest of the year. So if you're having a good, excited New Year's surrounded by people you love, then that's a predictor of what your year is going to be. If you're miserable and alone and frustrated, that's what your year is going to be. I don't know where I heard that, but that kind of got in my head a little bit. And I'm like, I want to be happy and joyous on New Year's. I
Mhm.
have clients who are of, can't remember if they're German or Austrian descent, and their tradition is an interesting one. On New Year's Day, the first thing you have to buy is soap.
Mm.
You cannot buy not food, not water. You have to buy soap. And one year they had gone down to watch the Rose Parade. It was a
Mhm.
dream of them. And they woke up on New Year's Day in a hotel. Of course, no stores are open. They want to
Mhm.
get breakfast, but they realize they have to buy soap first. So they went to the front desk and said, "Can we buy a bar of soap?" And the guy says, "No, no, no, we just give this to you." And they went, "No, no, we have to buy it from you." And he's like, "It's a little, I'll give you this." Like, no, 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 just take money for it. And they had to negotiate, but they had to beg this guy to sell them soap so that they could go on with their tradition. It was hilarious. I was just cracking up when they were telling me this. So there are some traditions that, my dad always handed out money, so I always hand out money. My ex and I used to throw coconuts on New Year's Eve. That was our tradition. He
Uh-huh.
kept that one going. I don't do that anymore. So it's like, it's just you take
Well,
what you want and you build new things.
and it's interesting, and to kind of, carry on to, your thing about New Year's Eve, one thing again that my partner was always taught and that we're kind of doing this year is the first 12 days of the year as well represent your whole year. And
Oh,
so, live them well and be aware of what happens the first 12 days of the year, because chances are something very similar is going to show up in the months that follow
that's
as
cool.
well. And so it's interesting because, like I said, I mean, she grew up literally on the other side of the world than I did. And so we had similar but very different upbringings. And so it's interesting, some of the traditions or things or sayings or superstitions, if you want to call them, that we have here in America. She had some of the same but also some different,
Mm,
and it's been a great opportunity for me to just like that with the 12 days. And then it's like, hold it, 12 days, we always sing the song of the 12 days of Christmas,
yeah.
right? It's like, oh, isn't this interesting? Maybe there's a tie-in and something more ancient,
Hmm.
around it.
Hmm.
But and so for me, it's just been a good example of kind of some awareness and thinking about some of these things like, just like some of the old superstitions or the things that we say, it's like, well, is there more to it than that? Or is it just a superstition?
Right.
Right. But I think the important thing, with these traditions or any expectations people might put on it is, well, just think about it for yourself. Right. It's like,
Yeah.
when you got divorced, you decided I'm not throwing coconuts anymore. Fine. Right.
I
But if you
tried.
but if you wanted to continue throwing them,
Yep.
fine.
The first 2 years I tried to keep it going, and then it just faded away.
Hmm. Yeah, because it no longer serves you, so it's time to move on and do something else.
It was fun. It was just a pain in the ass to find coconuts every year. And of course, like 2 days after New Year's, I was at grocery outlet. They had this whole pile of coconuts, and I went, "Oh, yeah,
There you
yeah."
go.
It
There
was
you go.
busy. And one year they flew into the street, and a car ran over one, and it almost crashed. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm done." I'm like, this is now dangerous. So pick a non-dangerous traditions, and yeah, question why you're still doing that. Is that something that's still important to you, especially with something like a wedding or a holiday or like a big dinner party where, so much is expected of you. And what do you want to keep going and what don't you? So yeah, make a journal.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't let the expectations of others dictate what you do as well, right? Because we're all different, we're all unique, and if people think you're weird, fine. But if it makes
Oh,
you
people think we're
happy,
weird.
if it makes you happy, if it serves you well, then just do it. Create your own traditions, stop doing the things you don't want to do anymore. So,
Yeah, I agree. Cool. All right. I am Kathy Groover. I can be reached at kathygroover.com.
and I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out, have a great week, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
See ya.